Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to Chef Salim's Cooking Recipes channel. In this recipe, I will show you how to prepare an amazing bone broth in the most delicious way. Integrate it into your meal, and make flavorful meatballs. I'll also demonstrate in detail how to prepare Islama Köfte, a traditional dish. This recipe can be made at home on a grill, in an oven, or in a pan. Let's get started. Preparing the bone broth. Before preparing the meatballs, we'll start by making the bone broth. For this, we need beef or veal bones. I took these bones out of the freezer and began preparation a day in advance. It's also possible to prepare them the next day, but that requires a different cooking technique. If you take the bones out a day earlier, place them in cold water. I don't use hot water because it can prevent the blood from fully draining out of the bones. Here, you can see steam rising, but it's not because the water is hot, it's because the bones are frozen. After soaking overnight, the blood in the bones will be completely cleaned. At this point, remove the bones from the water and place them in a pressure cooker. I'll boil them for about 2 hours with some special spices. If you don't use a pressure cooker, you'll need to boil the bones for approximately 5 hours. Spice selection. The spices I use include 2 tablespoons of hot red chili powder, about 50 grams of salt, a pinch of sugar, garlic powder, dried garlic stems if available, 3 bay leaves, and soy sauce. You can add other flavor-enhancing spices like nutmeg or ginger, depending on your taste. However, avoid using thyme because it can turn bitter after boiling for a long time, which may ruin the flavor. Once the spices are added, pour boiling water over the bones, close the lid, and let it simmer for 2 hours on low heat. Preparing the meatballs. Now let's start preparing the meatballs. I'll use a mix of beef rib meat and lamb meat. I already had this mix prepared in advance, labeled for meatballs. When making meatballs, it's important to maintain the fat balance. For example, if you're using 5 kilograms of beef, add 5 kilograms of lamb. If the fat content is too low, the meatballs may turn out dry. In that case, you can add extra animal fat, as I do. You can also use parsley stems if you prefer. Ingredients like parsley and peppers help make the meatballs soft because they release their juices when ground. First, I grind the meat through a meat grinder. Ingredients and mixing. For the meatballs, you'll need plenty of onions. Peel the onions, 10 to 20 depending on their size, and grind them in a blender. Once ground, add them to the minced meat. Next, mix 1 teaspoon of baking soda with a little water and add it to the meat mixture. For every 1 kilogram of meat, add about 8 grams of salt. For example, if you're using 10 kilograms of meat, add 80 grams of salt. Additionally, add garlic, cumin, and black pepper to enhance the flavor. After mixing the ingredients, check the consistency. Pass the mixture through the meat grinder again to ensure all the ingredients are evenly combined and the texture is smooth. Kneading and shaping the meatballs. Place the meatball mixture into a large tray and knead it with your hands for about 5 minutes. Instead of adding plain water, you can use sparkling water or even a small amount of egg to make the meatballs softer and more flavorful. After kneading, wet your hands with water and divide the mixture into equal portions, around 40 grams each. Don't forget to support our channel by liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Share the videos with your friends and let them play fully on your computer or device. Thank you for your support. Wet your hands again, shape the meatballs into flat patties, and place them on a baking tray. I'll bake most of them in the oven, but if you grill or cook them over charcoal, they'll be even more flavorful. I prepare 5 meatballs per person. Cooking options. The meatballs can be cooked in the oven, fried in a pan, or grilled over charcoal. Charcoal grilling will give the meatballs a distinct smoky flavor. When frying in a pan, I shape the meatballs thinner and flatter to ensure they cook evenly. Preparing the bread. We will soak the bread in bone broth. Now our bone broth is ready. This bone broth is essential for the dish. Strain the bone broth and quickly dip the bread slices into it. Be careful not to leave them in the broth. It's best to use sourdough bread with a firm texture, but if you don't have it, sliced bread typically used for breakfast will also work. Strain the bone broth and pour it over the bread slices placed on a tray. Quickly dip the bread into the broth, as leaving them too long will cause them to fall apart. I will prepare a simple sauce with the remaining bone broth to prevent the meatballs from drying out after they come out of the oven. After adjusting the amounts of some chili powder, soy sauce, and salt, I add starch and bring it to a boil. This way, we have created a delicious sauce to keep the oven-baked meatballs moist. After soaking, toast the bread slices in a pan without adding oil. The broth already contains enough fat to prevent sticking. Once golden brown, set them aside on a plate. Final touches and serving. Place the toasted bread on a plate and layer the meatballs on top. You can garnish with yogurt, tomatoes, cucumbers, or peppers to add variety. When you take a bite of the bread and meatball together, you'll experience a melt-in-your-mouth tenderness with rich flavors. This dish is not only delicious, but also healthy and satisfying. If you want to prevent oven-cooked meatballs from drying out, you can make a simple sauce. Mix some bone broth, chili powder, soy sauce, salt, and starch to create a flavorful sauce. Drizzle it over the meatballs before serving. Finally, serve the meatballs with the toasted bread. You can also add yogurt or fresh vegetables in the center for a balanced plate. Take a piece of bread and a meatball, enjoy the tender texture and incredible taste, and don't hesitate to try this recipe. Bon appetit! Thank you for your support, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more recipes. See you in the next recipe. Goodbye.